Hello and welcome back to probably one of our final videos, talking about the Overwatch League for the 2021 season. We're going in to the playoffs and it's going to be an absolute banger of a playoffs, because honestly all 8 teams are incredible. I don't think there are any, even the teams that you would consider the weakest, in my opinion, like your Washington Justices or your Philadelphia Fusions, even they have a massive upside potential and they could be one of the better teams in the playoffs. Every team can peak at the right time, and I don't think there is a single team that is just like, this team is just happy to be here, you know? Like NYXL in the June Joust is like, they were just happy to be there. No one thought they were going to win. No one expected them to do well, but they were just having a good time. So let's talk about them. We're going to start from the top. Going to make our way down for all these matches and we can sort of talk. And then I'm going to do my Pickems in this video as well. So stick around for that. So let's talk about first pick, Shanghai Dragons choosing the San Francisco Shock. It was a choice. I don't completely agree with it. We don't really know what the real reasons are. Obviously, Moon said this is a grudge match. This match was destined, and they were going to choose them from the beginning when they lost in 2020 to the San Francisco Shock. They want a rematch. They want to be better than the Shock. It's the Dragons. I think. Well, let's talk more about them. I think Shanghai Dragons are the favorites going into this tournament. They have looked the best in these Wrecking Ball Zen compositions when they've been able to play that and they've been focusing on doing that. They have looked the best. That's how they won the June Joust. That's how they won the Summer Showdown. Obviously, they sort of bottomed out of the Countdown Cup, and that raises a lot of questions for a lot of people of like, are they going to be able to bounce back from that? Obviously, they said, we're not trying our hardest. They didn't really want to compete in the Countdown Cup playoffs because they wanted to rest up as a team. Could that hurt them in the long run, or will it sort of be a benefit to them that their players coming in fresh? Time will tell. As I always talk about, the only team that's ever really done this in the history of the Overwatch League is the New York Excelsior, who did it in 2018, and they fizzled out in spectacular fashion when that happened. So we'll see, but I think Shanghai Dragons are still the favorites and the number 1 seed, and deservedly so coming into this. The meta is good for them. If they can play at the same level they have been, it's going to be hard for anyone to keep up with them. The redeeming quality that I will give to the San Francisco Shock is they seem to have worked out their roster. They have their dive squad, they have their brawl squad. The players' substitutions seem to be making a lot more sense. They're not putting Violent on DPS. FD God is coming in to play the Lucio. We're not having, Violent have to play the Lucio or the Mercy or those kind of things. So they've seemed to have worked out how they want to make the switches. Unfortunately, the way that they play the game is very transparent. When they have Super in and FD God in, they want to play like a Lucio Ryan. When they have Smurf in, when they have Arns in, they want to play that Winston dive. That sort of seems to be the basic fundamentals for how they're switching out. But they're good at both, and that's how they won in 2020. Didn't matter that they were inflexible when they had these rosters in. They were just the best at those compositions when they were being played. It didn't matter if you saw it coming. You didn't know how to beat it. Can the Shock get back to that point? Obviously, they are 2-time world champions. They know how to win playoff games, but they have new players. They aren't the same Shock that we've seen historically. In the past, when the Shock have been dominant in the playoffs, they've also been dominant in the regular season, and that hasn't been the case so far this year. So you need to be optimistic about the Shock. They've been doing better as of late in the Countdown Cup. In the play-ins, they proved that they are starting to become better than they were for the most part in the regular season, but it's still not flawless. It's still not they're the best team in the world. A redeeming quality they also have is that they play a style that has already beaten the Wrecking Ball Zen Brig. To qualify for the playoffs, the San Francisco Shock beat the Toronto Defiant. Obviously, not the best team out there, and not the best team especially at that composition. They're going up against the best at that composition. Toronto is not that, but the San Francisco Shock have shown an ability, at least an understanding of how they want to play against it and the way that they're going to try and solve this problem of the Shanghai Dragons. Who knows what's going to happen? Shanghai could also just not even play that Wrecking Ball Zen comp if they find out that it's not the best. That's the Dragons' value, is that they can really play anything when they put their mind to it. They are stronger at the Wrecking Ball comps from what we've seen. They don't want to lean into as much Winston. They don't want to play double shield. But for most part, they're quite good at everything. So I'm excited to see this matchup. I think this matchup is going to have a lot of implications for both these teams. I think if the Shanghai Dragons is dominant in this first win, it will reaffirm everyone's belief that maybe Dragons are probably the best team in the league. And that they are the favorites to win. If not, the San Francisco Shock, even if the San Francisco Shock plays the Dragons close, all of a sudden we start having those questions. Is the Shock going to make a lower bracket run? Are the Shanghai Dragons vulnerable? Can they bleed? So this first match is going to be an absolute telltale of what the rest of the playoffs is going to look like. So we'll see. San Francisco Shock fans, keep hitting that hopium. You're going to fucking need it. It's going to be an uphill battle. I don't think, if I was ranking, like, maybe I'll do this towards the end of the video. I'll do a 1 to 8 seeding of where I think the teams are going into the playoffs, because the Pickems won't really perfectly highlight that. But I would say Shock is somewhere around 4th or 5th, I think, right now, in where I would put them in the power rankings, while the Shanghai Dragons are number 1. So I think that is where we're going to stand up at this. Let's make this a little more scuffed, okay? Let's do this. Copy, and then we'll open Paint later, and we'll do a power rankings. Actually, let's do it now. Crop. All right. So I'm going to put Shock as 4. Let's make it a little bit wider, you know? Shock at 4, Shanghai Dragons at 1. Okay? This is power rankings. This is active power rankings. Do it from 1 to 8 or 8 to 1. We're gonna just go through and then we'll see if I have to completely agree with what I'm doing. Alright, let's move on. Actually, let's put in a score. I think the Shanghai Dragons are gonna take this 3-1. I think this will be closer than a lot of people think, but I think 3-1 is fair. I don't see it going to map 5. Like, maybe this could happen to the Dragons, but I think Dragons are just my favorites heading into these playoffs. All right, Philadelphia Fusion versus the Los Angeles Gladiators. This was the match that didn't get chosen. This is the Los Angeles Gladiators were the 4th seed, and Philadelphia Fusion got chosen last. So that is how this matchup came to be. The Philadelphia Fusion, I think, is an interesting team, because one of the reasons I think they were chosen last is that no one really knows what to expect from this Fusion roster. They have never really had their full roster in the country available to play throughout the entirety of the season, and that reflected in their inability to make it to the playoffs and really hit that top level that we know them for. It's not like they overhauled their roster massively heading into 2021 compared to their dominant regular season in 2020. It just felt like, Funny Astro was never available to play. Shockwave wasn't able to come in and play that hit scan historically, and that forced Carpe to go play that hit scan, forced EQO to be a lot more diverse than I think they probably wanted to him. And then obviously at the start of the season, they were playing a lot of Rascal to just sort of fill those gaps. It seems like they have almost all the pieces now. Obviously, Poco's not there, but I think Hopper's been playing really well. And that is why the Philadelphia Fusion is sort of a question mark of how good is this team going to be in the playoffs, because we've always known them to level up in the playoffs in some fashion. They've obviously never got that win, but they've always been good. And I think everyone's a little worried because the ceiling of Philadelphia Fusion is so high. It really is. They have incredible players. When you have players like Carpe, Mano, Alarm, Funny Astro, like, they're so good at everything that they do. And when they peak, they fucking peak and they destroy. So a lot of people are curious to see if they're going to hit that. And that is really my question. I think they are one of the weaker teams, because I think just expecting them to peak at the right moment is sort of high levels of copium that I'm sure a lot of the Fusion fans are on. But I think there is a lot of variance between the Fusion. Fusion could easily come into this match, lose both matches, and fall out of the playoffs, and it wouldn't completely shock me. Philadelphia Fusion could go on to win a couple of matches and finish top 4. That also wouldn't shock me. So we'll see. Stick on that copium, stick on that hopium. I think there is a chance, but unfortunately they are going up against the Los Angeles Gladiators, the team that did most recently win the Countdown Cup. Gladiators are obviously a phenomenal team with a great roster. They just haven't really tapped into it for the majority of this season, but it's coming, you know, it's peaking at the right moment for them. They played incredibly well in the Countdown Cup, playing a lot of different heroes as well. And I think that is something about the Gladiators that you can be optimistic about, is that they... okay, that just didn't work. Is that they can play almost everything. They're a very flexible team. They are better at some things than others, but for the most part, they have shown a willingness and an ability to play everything. Look, they are quite diverse. They do want to lean into Skewed playing this Brig. They want Space playing that Diva. But for the most part, like, look at Muse's variability. He's played, like, obviously a lot of Winston and Orisa, but he can play the Rhine, he can play the Wrecking Ball. Shu's played everything. They are, like, Birdring is just absolutely all over the place, right? So they have had lots of different looks, but what they are the best in is what we saw from them in the Countdown Cup. So in the Countdown Cup, they played a lot. Don't look at this Mirror and Moth. This is a bait. This actually wasn't played that much. What is it, like 30 minutes? For the most part, they were playing this Shu playing the Zen with the Wrecking Ball, or the Ana with the Winston, but they were willing to slow it down and play the Orisa where it was necessary. Put Birdring on that Hanzo, and just sort of play these different speeds and tempos. It was something that sort of hurt them a lot historically in the past, where they were too diverse. They weren't focusing on one comp, or when they were focusing on one comp, they just didn't adapt very well. So I think that the Gladiators are probably primed to be one of the better teams in these playoffs, just because of they look confident. Shu is having MVP performances. Like he the only reason he was even considered for MVP because how well he played in the Countdown Cup. Space is having his sort of like glow up, or at least people are starting to recognize how well Space has been playing on this Diva. Very selfless, aggressive style. Muse honestly had Rookie of the Year performances. It all happened too late. And then Kevster is just absolutely fucking incredible on the Tracer. One of the best that we have in the league. Birdring's sort of hitting his form, especially on that Hanzo and that hit scan. So it could all work out for them in so many different ways. It'll just be interesting to see what LA Gladiators is going to show up, and that's what makes this Philadelphia Fusion Los Angeles Gladiators match interesting. Is the Gladiators going to keep that momentum going and play at the same level that we saw from them in the Countdown Cup, or are they going to regress back into they can't ever hit that peak again? We don't know. We haven't really seen the Gladiators play much in the playoffs, but they seem to have gotten over that hump. For this match, I think it's going to be close. I think Gladiators going to win in map 5. I think Philadelphia Fusion is going to come out swinging. And I think I don't know if the Gladiators are going to be ready for what the Fusion is going to play, because the thing that makes Fusion interesting as well is that they play a lot of random shit. Just go back and look at what happened in the playoffs. They have EQO playing Genji, they have EQO playing Sombra, then he's playing Echo, they have Shockwave coming in to play the hit scan, they have Carpe coming in to be more flexible, they'll play the dive, they'll play the slower. I think the Philadelphia Fusion aren't afraid of getting into the trenches and just making it an all-out brawl, and Philadelphia Fusion is one of the few teams that can go toe-to-toe with the Gladiators in terms of raw talent on their roster. If it just ends up an all-out brawl, I think it'll be close, and I think that's what this match is going to be. It's going to be an absolute slobber knocker, and that I don't think it's going to be as much this composition versus this composition. This is going to be fucking ranked level of hero picks, and I think it's going to be all over the place, but I'm looking for it. I'm looking forward to it. So I give it to the Gladiators. I'm sorry, Fusion fans. I think you still can be optimistic once we get down to the lower bracket. We have breaking news from Miss Liz. This better be worth it to look at. I'm doing it in the middle of a video. Breaking news for Atlanta Reign fans. Pelican will be playing in the playoffs just from the West Coast. The league has also agreed to try to move all NA matches to West Coast servers. Selfless Brad tells .esports. Pog champion. Just from the West Coast makes it seem like Pelican is going to be playing from LA, probably. Because he obviously can't get on a plane. If you have a collapsed lung, you shouldn't go on. Air pressure in a plane is apparently a bad thing. I'm not a doctor. That's what everyone tells me. So they might drive him to LA, which will hopefully reduce the ping a little bit more. Obviously not going to be ideal if he's playing against East Coast teams. It's probably going to be at 120, 130, 140, but anything's better than the 200s that he ended up in in certain things, so in certain situations. So that is good, and that means that Atlanta Reign will be playing with Pelican. And the more important thing is if they're playing against a West Coast team, then they will be able to play on West Coast servers, and he'll be able to play on a reasonable ping. So we'll see. We'll see. That's exciting news, and that is very useful to know. All right, let's talk about Washington Justice and the Dallas Fuel. So, the Washington Justice scares me. I think... Oh, actually, I gotta do my power rankings of these teams. Wait, let me do that first. I think Philadelphia Fusion is 7th. And I think the Gladiators are... Oh, did I fuck myself? I'm gonna put them as 3, but I think they might be 4. I might have put Shock too high. Yeah, I fucked myself. We'll work it out. Hey, we'll work it out. Don't worry, we'll get there. Oh, that's not what I wanted. All right. So, the Washington Justice, and let me talk about why they scare me. There's a weird thing that they seem to be doing where they want to lean into this Winston. Closer played Lucio. They literally played so much Lucio Moira. They played a little bit of Brawl with the Ryan and the Baptiste, but for the most part, they played Lucio Moira everywhere with like a Tracer Sombra. They did play a little bit of Echo Reaper, all that kind of stuff. So they want to play this. This is the definition of rush. They want to play fast, they want to play high tempo, and they actually looked quite good doing it. They did qualify for the playoffs. They did manage to make it work against the Houston Outlaws. I don't believe that this composition is better than the Wrecking Ball composition. I think the Wrecking Ball composition is better, and I think the Houston Outlaws got outplayed, not by composition. I think they got outplayed just by mechanics, and I think they dropped the ball a couple of times. I don't think this is the best composition. Funnily enough, they're actually going up against the Dallas Fuel. But look at this graph, right? The Lucio Moira, the Diva, the Winston. I want to show you something. The Dallas Fuel, in the June Joust, look at the composition that they played. Lucio, Moira, Diva, Winston. They did play with different DPS. They did prefer to play with the Reaper and the Echo. This was the tournament that I believe Tracer Sombra was banned. So there wasn't any Tracer Sombra played. So that does change a little bit. But this is essentially a composition that Lucio Moira, that Dallas Fuel sort of invented. They played this rush first. This high tempo speed fucking just run at your face. This is when they had that incredible performance. They almost won the June Joust, but then bringing it all back to a head. The reason that this composition fell apart was that the Shanghai Dragons ball comp was just too good. They didn't have the damage or the ability to shut down the Wrecking Ball from Fate, and that he just rolled all over them. So the question that you raise, and why I'm terrified for the Washington Justice, is this going to work for them long term against some of the best teams? It might get them a couple of wins. Obviously, as I said, it got them the win over the Houston Outlaws. Is it going to get them consistent wins in the playoffs where they're playing against a lot of different compositions? Maybe the Tracer Sombra is better against the ball because you have the ability to hack the ball. But, you know, I think we can all agree the way that the Washington Justice beat the Houston Outlaws and the ball comp was by isolating Dreamer on that Wrecking Ball. They were hacking him time and time again, making it impossible for him to play the game, and he just kept getting punished. I don't think Fate's going to make those same mistakes, and I don't think a lot of these other main tanks, you know, your Amongs, your Gagas, your your other Wrecking Ball tanks. Actually, are there in many other Wrecking Ball teams? Philadelphia Fusion plays it a little bit. Like, they're not going to make the same mistakes, I think, as much. Assassin also stepped up. Yeah, his Sombra was really good, but is that going to work against better teams? And I don't think it is going to happen. I'm curious to see if Washington is going to add any flexibility to their compositions now that they're in the playoffs, now that they know they're going up against different beasts, or are they just going to stick, hey, they don't want to play the Wrecking Ball comps. I don't think they should play the Wrecking Ball comps. It's just not their strong suit, but maybe they could lean into a little bit more brawl, play more of that Lucio Ryan sim or something like that on some points. Just sort of mix it up, make it sure that they don't just like straight up lose. Like the San Francisco Shock have an interesting counter to the ball compositions, which is like the Rhine. They play like the Rhine, Diva, Torb. It's like Torb Reaper or something like that, right? Like Torb Echo, Torb Sombra, all these kind of things. They play like a heavy counter dive. That's the way the Shock wants to counter the Wrecking Ball, because Shock also is a team that doesn't like to play that Wrecking Ball. Torb Cowboy, it is the Kree. So you have that flashbang, right? You have the flashbang, you have the Torb turret, you have a high amount of damage, makes it very hard for the ball to move around the map. So maybe Washington Justice might end up hitting a wall, but fortunately for them, they're going up against the Dallas Fuel first round. And the Dallas Fuel is a team that also doesn't want to play Wrecking Ball. Neither of these teams have shown a willingness to play this composition because it's just not their strength. They don't want to put Fearless on the Wrecking Ball. He's just better on the Winston. And I think the team plays better around the Winston than they do around the Wrecking Ball. They just don't look anywhere near as comfortable. So this matchup could actually end up being a mirror matchup of the Winston, Lucio, Moiras. Or maybe Dallas Fuel will play more of the Winston and a Brig. We don't really know where it's going to stand up, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see both of these teams play a bit of Brawl and a bit of Winston, Lucio, Moira. So this will be more of a mirror matchup than I think some of these other matches. As I said before, I don't believe in these compositions that much to get them the whole distance through the entire playoffs to win the grand finals, but it will win them a couple of matches. But can the Washington Justice beat the Dallas Fuel at their own game? As I said before, the Washington Justice are essentially taking Dallas Fuel's comp from all the way back in June Joust. They're trying to play the Dallas Fuel style. It's hard to beat someone at their own game. So it'll be interesting for the Justice. I think the Justice are going to struggle in this in the playoffs. I don't think they are one of the stronger teams. I'm going to put them at 8th just because as much as I don't believe, as much as I think they deserve to be here, I don't believe in them to be one of the better teams in the 8th. So I'm going to go 3. I kind of want to go 3-0. Part of me thinks that Dallas is going to slap Washington. I'll give him a map. Yeah, you guys are saying 3-1. I'll give him a map. We'll see how it goes. It was 3-2 in the Summer Showdown. Yeah, that was so long ago though, right? Like, that was ages ago. Tons has changed. No 3-0s in the playoffs? I hope so. Dallas Fuel does run into the same issue that we talked about with the Shanghai Dragons. How good is the Dallas Fuel? They also didn't want to go to the Countdown Cup. They weren't putting their best foot forward. Rush came out and said, we're resting the players. We aren't really focusing on trying to make it to Hawaii. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas Fuel come back reinvigorated, but can they hit that same peak and that same form that we know them for in the past? It's hard to really know. As I said, we don't have a lot of sample size of teams doing that. It can be hard to sort of hit that peak once you sort of get there. We got a hot take from Name Creative. Washington is out in 6 maps. The team has talent, but has flared out at every place they've been in, or have failed to qualify by looking like a bottom 5 team in the league. Even when they're at their best, they're still the worst team on the board by far. I agree with you. I don't think they are bottom 5 in the league. I don't think that's fair. I think it's fair to say that they have never looked like the best team in the playoffs. That said, they did beat the Houston Outlaws. That was a good win. That was sort of, I guess, uncharacteristic for them so far this season. But I agree. That's why I have Washington Justice 8th. I don't think they're going to go out in 6. But I think they are one of the weakest teams in the region just because they don't have flexibility. I think that people are going to work them out. And I don't think they play it anywhere near as well as the Dallas Fuel. On that note as well, before I finish talking about these two teams, the Dallas Fuel are not going to play Pine. Please stop asking me about Pine. If they play Pine, I will color me shocked, because if they are not willing to play Pine for the Countdown Cup qualifiers to see if they're going to go to Hawaii, which it didn't seem like they really wanted to win at all, they are not going to play Pine in the playoffs. I would be absolutely baffled if they play Pine. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a hit scan meta. The only time I expected him to play is if it was going to go into hit scan, but it doesn't seem like that. I think Tracer Sombra is still going to be prominent. Either that or we're going to play the Brawl. There's not going to be any Widow. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of Ashe either, so I expect Pine to play. Get a tattoo if he plays? Absolutely not. Because here's the thing. If he plays, I think it's a throw. We haven't seen him play the entire season. I think putting him in the highest pressure situations in the final hours, I think is a bad decision. Dallas Fuel's strength has always been their hive mind mentality and how they play as a unit. And I don't know if Pine is going to fit into that or how he's going to fit into that. So we'll see. Shit, next thing you'll say, Jimmy won't play either. Let's move on to the next match between Atlanta Reign and the Chengdu Hunters. I don't think Jimmy's gonna play. And I don't think he should play. I think the Chengdu Hunters are gonna play the exact same way that they've been playing in the last couple of tournaments. I think they will come out, they're gonna play the Wrecking Ball, they're gonna play the Pharah, they're gonna play that style. Jimmy's gonna be on the Pharah, and they're just gonna go down swinging, playing what they did. I would be shocked if they don't play that. I don't think anything is showing that the Pharah isn't good. It's definitely not the best, and I think that Chengdu isn't going to beat the Shanghai Dragons, but it's the Chengdu Hunters. They know how to play the Pharah, they know how to play the style. The Gladiators did expose it a little bit, but even then, final map, final round, all that kind of stuff. The Far Mercy is their bread and butter. Play what you're good at. Because who knows, maybe Chengdu level up. Maybe no one else is ready. Because no one else is playing the Pharah, Chengdu could easily catch everyone off guard. It'll be interesting, but I think Chengdu should play the exact same way. Like if we just go and look at what they've played throughout the entirety of this season, the proof is in the pudding. We got Jinmu has played 6 hours of Pharah. When he isn't playing the Pharah, they're not playing. It's not like they're switching their comp. He just plays Sombra. And that allows Leave to play the hit scan. If he's playing the Pharah, he can play the Tracer. He can play the Sombra. And then if Jinmu wants to play the Sombra, he can play the Tracer. He can play the Hanzo. Just stick to that formula. It always works. I think Gaga and Among have both been playing very well. If they want to lean into the Wrecking Ball, it seems like Among might be the better look, but Gaga obviously gives them that flexibility of being able to move over to the Rissa. As I said, go play that like Orisa, Hanzo, Sombra style if they ever need to, because they've shown that works quite well. So I'm excited to see how the Hunters are going to do. I don't think this is going to be a different Hunters. I think this is going to be the same Hunters that we know and love. So now we need to talk about Atlanta Reign, and obviously we just got that important news of Pelican will be playing from the West Coast. How valuable is that going to be for the team? Obviously, he might be on a little bit higher ping, but I think Edison is a good player. He's not Pelican, and I don't think Edison has the flexibility of Pelican. And I think it very much hurts how the entire Reign want to play the game. They've like forced Edison onto Pharah like a couple of times just because like it worked when Pelican did it. It just didn't look anywhere as good and clean. So I expect Atlanta to be like Chengdu. I don't expect them to break the mold of the way that they've been playing the game. They're still gonna play a lot of Orisa. They're gonna play a hit scan on Kai. He's going to play the Hanzo. He's going to play the McCree. He's going to play all these kind of things. The Torb when they want a hard counter dive. Iris is going to play the BAP. He's played 77% Baptiste. Think about that. In an entire season where we've had dive, we've had brawl, we've had shields, we've had all that kind of stuff. This is the biggest telltale sign of how little they want to dive. How much Iris plays Baptiste because he's so good at it. But it's also, you look at this, Gator has only played 9.2% Winston, 12.9% Ball. They don't want to dive. They've shown an ability to at certain moments when they have to, but for the most part, if they don't have to, they're not going to. And I expect to see the same from them. I expect to see Pelican Kai as the DPS duo. I expect to see them play a lot of the Orisa. I expect to see them play a lot of this Sim Brawl as well. Something we haven't seen from a lot of teams as of late, because in the Countdown Cup, Ryan was banned. Lucio was banned. I think it was Lucio was banned. We didn't play a lot of Brawl just because you don't have that speed boost to move everyone around. So you weren't able to play as much. And I think Atlanta Reign is probably one of the best teams left to play the Brawl. Maybe the San Francisco Shock is also quite good at the Brawl. Philadelphia Fusion plays it, but hasn't been as incredible lately. So they are probably one of the best teams in the playoffs playing the Brawl. So I think this is going to be the same answer that we've seen before. I want to look at this. Atlanta Reign. I'm pretty sure they're 0-2 against the Chengdu Hunters. So the last time they played was in the Countdown Cup where they got 3-0'd by the Chengdu Hunters. And if I remember, this wasn't particularly close either. They looked very defeated at not having Pelican. And then the other time that they played in the league, I thought they played twice. Oh, maybe they only played once. Is this not updated? I could have sworn they played twice. They've definitely played more than this, right? Just the one. Interesting. I thought they had played it multiple times because obviously we've seen Atlanta, like June Joust, Summer Showdown. Well, I guess the only one that they were both there together was Summer Showdown and Countdown Cup. And then in Summer Showdown, Atlanta got bodied by Shanghai, right? And then they lost to Dallas. So they're saying there's a chance. I'm really surprised. I could have sworn I've seen Atlanta play them more, but maybe they haven't. That's crazy. When Shanghai bitch slapped them, yeah. And Shanghai was playing similar style to Chengdu. But yeah, moral of the story is Atlanta Reign hasn't really had a great check record against the Chengdu Hunters and the Shanghai Dragons whenever they've had to play against those teams, right? So like Atlanta got 3-0'd by the Shanghai Dragons here. They got 3-0'd by the Shanghai Dragons. Like, they haven't really shown an ability to beat these dive styles. So, can they break that mold? So, it seems unlikely. This is going to be a hard match for the Atlanta Reign. I think Atlanta is going to be a great team against a lot of these teams. But I honestly think Chengdu and Shanghai are kind of like the kryptonite to the way that the Atlanta Reign play. And I feel like they don't have a great answer for it. So we'll see. Maybe they'll work something out. Maybe they can work. I think if they play the Brawl counter dive, might be their best style. I don't like the Orisa hit scan to try and deal with the Hunter's composition. I think it's just too flat-footed, and I think Shanghai and Chengdu are too good at isolating targets and moving around them. So we'll see. Maybe Atlanta will try something different. Maybe they'll play the Pharah of their own, right? They've shown that they want to play Pelican on that Pharah. They could play their own Pharah style without the Wrecking Ball. We'll see. I'm going to give this one a 3-1 to the Chengdu Hunters. I think Atlanta's going to get a map. But as I said, I think Chengdu is the Atlanta Reign's kryptonite. And I don't know if they will be able to get a solution because it's so hard to practice against this style, like the Chengdu style. No one plays the game the way Chengdu does. Maybe the Shanghai Dragons, but, well, then you're playing against the Shanghai Dragons as well. So giving Atlanta one is generous, yeah. But I think Atlanta will make a run through the lower bracket. So let's talk about this. Let's move on. So that's all. That's the 8 teams. Shit, I walked over this. So I'm putting Washington 8th. And I'm putting Fuel 2nd. Yeah, I definitely fucked this up. I definitely fucked this up. I actually think... Okay, well, this is super scuffed, but we're going to do it. I actually think I'm going to put Chengdu 3. I think Chengdu has to be 3rd. No, fuck. Gladiators are 3rd. Who do you believe in more, chat? Chengdu or Gladiators? Gladiators are peaking, but Chengdu are tried and tested. I think you have to give it to the Hunters just because of how... I'm going to give 3rd to Chengdu. And this is because they've been more consistent throughout the entire year. they've been consistently second or third, or well, they've been at least in the top 4 the entire year. The Gladiators, obviously, they could prove me heavily wrong here, but they've only had that one good tournament. Obviously, it was the most recent tournament, and you should be high on the Gladiators. Like, Gladiators could easily just come out, and if they're playing in the same form that they did in the Countdown Cup, they're probably better than the Hunters. But I like the consistency and the experience of the Chengdu Hunters. Jinmu leave makes me feel something special. Atlanta greater than Philly? I think this is the same thing. You can't put Philly over Atlanta. Atlanta has been to 3 of the tournaments, right? They went in June Joust, Summer Showdown, and Countdown Cup. They've been consistently number 2 in the West. Top 2 in the West this whole season. I don't think you can disrespect them and put them crazy low. I am going to put them 5th. I'm going to put them over Shock. I'm going to put them 5th, and that is quite low for a team that has so many accolades, but I think not having Pelican traveling, I think on the high ping, plus I think this isn't going to be a great meta for them. I don't know if their style of playing the game, I think if Brawl and Shields, if I believed in more going into these playoffs, they'd be very high, but I think this is going to be a dive and a rush meta with like the Lucio and Moira or people playing the Wrecking Ball Zen stuff. And that puts the San Francisco Shock at 6. I think this is my power rankings for these teams. This is where, right now, I put them up. Obviously, there are matchups, there are head-to-heads, there are all these kind of things. But I think this is fair. But I put a lot of weight, and you need to remember, I put a lot of weight into previous results throughout the entirety of the season. That is why Dallas Fuel is number 2. I believe in the Dallas Fuel because I doubted them so much in the front half of the season when they were in the playoffs. They find a way to win games, and I think Dallas Fuel is going to find a way to win games in these playoffs. I think Washington and Philly have disappointed me all season. I think they're going to disappoint in the playoffs. San Francisco Shock is in the same boat. San Francisco Shock does have playoff experience, and that could push them way higher. And I think all of these teams have potential to make a run. If anyone finds the right meta, the right style, just hits their stride in the playoffs, I think any of these teams can have a great run. But this is where I am. Shock greater than Atlanta? You can believe that. I think you can definitely make an argument for Shock being greater than Atlanta. Absolutely. I don't doubt that at all. But I'm going to go with how they've been through the season. Johnny said that Washington beats Dallas. Please don't tell me Johnny actually said that. I'm going to have a serious talking with Johnny. Did he say maybe beats Dallas? Please tell me he said maybe beats Dallas. He needs to calm down. All right, I need to go, so we need to get through this. All right, let's run through the rest of this bracket real fast. I think the Shanghai Dragons are going to beat the Gladiators. I think they're going to win. I'll give Gladiators a map, but I think Shanghai Dragons wins 3-1. I think the Dallas Fuel beats the Chengdu Hunters. I think Dallas has always been good at dealing with the Chengdu Hunters, and I think if they play their rush style, they're like Winston style. It actually isn't that bad against the Pharah, and that will force Jinmu maybe to switch off of the Pharah to the Sombra, and I think then all of a sudden you have Dallas Fuel going thing. The only fear that I have for this actually is this stupid. Leave could just fuck this game. Like, Sparkle versus Leave in the Tracer head-to-head. What is their match history? What's their match history? They lost the last 2 times they played and not close. Ah. I'm giving it to Chengdu. I'm going to go 3-2 Chengdu. Tank and healer diff? No, I don't agree with that. I think I think they have a tank diff. I don't think they have a healer diff. But even then, both of them are so small. Like, I think Fearless Harbin is incredible, but like Fate Void in this meta is just so good. I'm gonna give it to Chengdu. I think this is fair. All right, let's go through a lower bracket. San Francisco Shock 3. (3-1) Philadelphia Fusion. I think Shock has an edge against the Philadelphia Fusion. Atlanta Reign vs Washington Justice. Atlanta wins 3. I'm gonna go for a 3-0. I think Atlanta is just knows how to beat Washington. I think they're just gonna know. As I said, Atlanta's played so much against Dallas. I think Atlanta's gonna know how to do it. I'm actually gonna do that. Shock versus Dallas. I think Dallas beats Shock to knock them out. Give San Francisco Shock a win, but I think Dallas is just too good. Gladiators versus Atlanta Reign. I'm going Gladiators. I think Atlanta Reign is going to struggle to hit the same form, but I also think the Gladiators just, I believe in the Gladiators. It's going to be close though. I'm going to go 3-2. I think this is going to be a banger series if we get an Atlanta versus Gladiators. I think it's going to be an absolute bang. It could easily go either way. I think it just depends on how good the Atlanta Reign is with Pelican back in the lineup on the ping. And then Dallas beats Gladiators 3-1. Shanghai beats Chengdu 3-1. Chengdu beats Dallas again. Or do we have the Hopium? Bro, this is the most copium for Glads I've ever seen. What do you mean? They just won the Countdown Cup. How is this copium? How is that copium? I think, here's what I'm gonna do. I think this is it. I'm gonna go. This is disrespect to Chengdu, but I hope we get Shanghai versus Dallas in the finals. So this is just, I don't even think this is right. I think this is just pure dreaming. I want to see Shanghai versus Dallas in the finals. I think Shanghai will win. I think Shanghai is the best team. But I want the Dallas salty run back and win in map 5. I think that'd be so sick. Same finals as everything else, Poggers. Oh, I want to see the two best teams in the league play it off, and that's why I want to see Shanghai versus Dallas. They have shown that they are the two best teams. Dallas is the best in the West, Shanghai is best in the East. I want to see those two teams play. I hope that Chengdu doesn't, like, if we get, like, I don't want, like, Shanghai to beat Chengdu here, and then Chengdu just beats Dallas, and then Shanghai just beats Chengdu again in the finals. I'd rather see a different opponent. Platchat had Shock beating Dallas for an upset. As I said, there is a ton of upset potential. The Shock could be really good. Philly could be really good. Washington could be really good. Gladiators could shit the bed. Atlanta could just not be good with Pelican on high ping. Shanghai might not perform to the same level. Dallas doesn't have a good meta. Chengdu can't play the Pharah as effectively as they used to. There are so many different scenarios that could happen. I think this is the most likely. And that is what the prediction bracket I've gone with. I think this is the most likely. And that is where I'm going to sit. This is my final bracket. That doesn't work. That's just great. This is my final bracket. I hope you guys found it interesting. I hope you guys thought my insight was useful. Let me know what you guys think. Chat, YouTube chat. In the comments, am I stupid? And if I see a San Francisco Shock fan, Philadelphia Fusion fan, Los Angeles Gladiators fan, a Dallas Fuel fan, just take a second when you start going, oh my god, no, this is so wrong, my team is gonna come first. Just take a second to think about it objectively and not just think that your team is gonna win, because you can't all win, especially when Shanghai Dragons is in the game. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Love you all. Here's my final look at the bracket, the power rankings. Shanghai Dragons number 1, Dallas Fuel number 2, Chengdu Hunters number 3, Los Angeles Gladiators number 4, Atlanta Reign number 5, San Francisco Shock number 6, Philadelphia Fusion 7, Washington Justice number 8. Thank you very much for watching. It's going to be a sick playoffs. Make sure you are there. I love you all, and I will see you guys there.